Let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What exactly is the metaverse?
So I'd explain it in two concepts. One is just what it is. It's a virtually shared social space. So it's the next evolution of the internet. So imagine you being on TikTok or Instagram, but virtually being in there and saying hi to the friends that you connect with, right? From a business and brand perspective, it's a new channel of generating a revenue stream. So for example, I love Nike shoes, right? I could either go into the Nike shop to buy a pair, or I could order a pair online, or now I can now design my shoes in the metaverse and get them ordered and delivered to my home.
And how exactly does this work? What impact would it have on our lives?
Great. So if we take a step back to 23 years ago when Bill Gates was on the David Letterman show, and just like this, he was talking about the internet. And David Letterman was a little bit ridiculing him about what that meant. And fast forward 23 years later, you and I basically live through the internet, order Uber, order food, use our apps on banking, all of that good stuff. So where we are at a phase where it was 23 years ago when this technology came out. If you look at the Gen Zs, you look at kids nowadays, everyone's getting digitally savvy. In the next couple of years, 5 to 10 years, this is going to be mainstream.
Now, the concept of the metaverse sounds so interesting, right? And I'm wondering if we were having this conversation in the metaverse right now, what would I need to do to have that immersive experience?
Absolutely. So I explained the channels are threefold, right? You could be in the metaverse on your mobile phone, you could be in the metaverse on the web, and you could be in the metaverse more immersive through your VR headset. So where you see people wearing virtual, or you see folks wearing virtual reality headset, that is the purest form of immersion, right? So a lot of metaverse platforms or virtual reality platforms give you that opportunity to jump in and have this conversation through any of those platforms. So it's accessible to everyone.
So now you're making this sound so simple and easy, but help me understand. Are you saying we're moving into a time where we could attend shows, see a performer, and possibly touch them, in the metaverse?
So yes and yes, right? So 2020, I think, the rapper Travis Scott did a concert in Fortnite in the metaverse, and within 10 minutes generated about, if my numbers are right, about $20 million. And my team and I are talking to Ladipo about, again, bracing the same within the African context for Nigeria to understand how we could get the music industry innovative through the metaverse. And when I said the next yes in terms of touching, at the moment, there are sophisticated tools such as hepatic suits you wear. And yeah, I know I'm going next level. And if we're in the metaverse and I touch you, you feel it physically, wherever you are in the world, if we're connected in the same metaverse environment. So it is common. There are several use cases, such as in the medical field, a consultant or a surgeon operating, and you need support from someone in a different country. Again, the medical use cases is a good one for this example.
Let's talk about the mainstream adoption of
Yeah.
the metaverse, and let's take this a couple years down the line.
Yeah.
Right, looking at where we are and the possibilities of this technology, how far are we from having it, as a part of our daily lives?
So if we take a step back, a friend of mine and I were talking about COVID, and we're like, oh, it was 3 years ago. I was like, oh wow. If you look at when COVID happened, a lot of us were first to change habits psychologically. Productivity. We started attending meetings on Zoom, MS Teams, Google Meets. Kids in school started online schooling, for a whole year, if not more. And that's still continuing now. A lot of folks are still having that hybrid, remote working experience in the workplace. If you look at it further down the line, we're already getting there. You being on Zoom, you being on Team is a form of immersion. Now, from an adoption perspective, we need to start looking at this from universities, education, solving the epidemic around loneliness, because people want to form meaningful experiences in the metaverse.
Now, you mentioned education there as part of the possibilities that the metaverse, can provide, and there safety concerns, because we have a lot of youngsters who are digital natives, and their safety concerns about the use of this technology.
Absolutely, and with us at Voltil, we take safety and security as one of the fundamentals and ensure that this is optimum in our metaverse. First, we look at the hardware and the age limit for that, ensuring that anyone below the age limit can jump in. Two, we're looking at authentication systems using artificial intelligence, working with regulators to ensure that we have a robust framework around the governance to ensure that if we're to enforce whatever regulations that come into place, that is adopted with the youths and folks that feel like, they want to be bad actors in the space. So it's something we're definitely keeping an eye on. I'm working through partnerships with folks that provide exact service to that for us to integrate in the metaverse.
Now, you are building a human-centric virtual world with
Correct.
your team. Tell us a bit about how it works.
Right. So what we've done is a lot of people build technology focusing on a problem and solution and just the tech. We've taken a step back and taken 7 out of 16 basic human instincts, things that make you and I human, like vitality, idealism, romance. In vitality, we're looking at working with health and fitness professionals. In Africa, in Nigeria, there's a huge challenge around mental health. At times it's seen as a stigma. We're starting to look at how we bridge therapy using AI avatars in the metaverse. So for us, it's making sure that from a human-centric perspective, people are involved.
And also, you sell virtual lands.
Correct.
Help me understand, because I don't see how that works. If I were to buy a piece of land here in Nigeria, I could see it.
Correct.
I could inspect it,
Correct.
See my building blocks if
Correct.
I intend to build well.
Correct.
What value do virtual lands provide?
So a lot of people are going to be asking the same question, and I'd answer that. But before I do that, if you buy Access Bank stocks or Zenith stocks, you can't see it. You just see a ledger and an account from your stockbrokers. You have this and this. Same with your money, right? Other than the fact that you go into the bank physically to withdraw it. A lot of these things are moving into digital, right? The idea of virtual land is, simply put, your access point into the metaverse. So take an example of the internet. You need a domain name for your website, Okpayemi at channelstv.com, for example. Channels TV, that domain name is equivalent to a plot of land. So while folks in the 80s and 90s were buying domain names and website names, the future is virtual land ownership. So you could build Channels TV, and we could talk about this later, in the metaverse and get people to access all of this good stuff, this production, your news stories in the metaverse through that platform.
Well, you make everything sound so fascinating, right? But with all the investments in the metaverse, especially from the big tech companies, the big players, will there be a time when individuals would work and be full-time in the metaverse? So
for certain roles, yes. However, because of the technology, we're not expecting people to be in a virtual reality headset 24/7. No. Mentally and psychologically, it's not just great, right? What we're saying is we want to use this to augment what you currently have. So in the workplace, for example, you still have physical meetings, albeit, saving cost on travel. A lot of the meetings have gone remotely. You still have, times when you need to be in the metaverse through work. But what we're saying is we're augmenting what you currently have. We're not replacing it.
Well, this only proves, how much you can achieve, or, anybody can achieve, actually, with the power of technology.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for the insights, Jimi Daodu, CEO and founder of Voltil.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm glad to be here.